Hello, everybody, and welcome to That's Football. A special treat for you today. I've got Laurence McKenna, or some call him Laurence. He's live from Liverpool. We're going to be talking about a lot of things, especially are Liverpool the best team in the world at the moment? But we've also got things like hot takes, like who has been the signing of the season so far? Who's the best player of the season so far? I want to get Loz's take on the Man City situation. We're also going to talk about the big games of the weekend as well. So good to have you on the show, Loz.
I just like chatting to you. So any opportunity we get to just meet up and just shoot the breeze, I feel is good.
I agree. Well, the reason we're doing this is basically because he's in a hotel room in Liverpool after the game, and get the comments in and smash a like if you enjoy it. But he's meant to be on the podcast last week with Will's absence, but I moved house, so couldn't do it. So sort of said, come on and do this. But look, are Liverpool the best team in the world at the moment? I put that tweet out there this morning. They've just beaten the champions of Europe. They've got the champions of England on Sunday, who, let's be honest, are a very much wounded animal. As a Liverpool fan who was at the game last night, are you tempering it? Some people are saying, there was this podcaster on Monday saying it slots to lose this title.
There was a lot of podcasters on Monday saying it slots to lose. And I think the Opta supercomputer, which, by the way, changes its opinion week on week, said Liverpool is 69% likely to win the league, or 69 times out of 100, or 690 times out of 1,000, or 69,000 times out of 100,000 times Liverpool will win the league. But I think that's all rubbish. Not because particularly I care about odds or whatever, but really what I care about is I think of it more of as like a lineal thing, almost like boxing. And genuinely, I'll ask you a genuine question: who do you think the best team that Liverpool have beaten this season is?
Real Madrid.
Not in terms of name. Do you actually think Real Madrid played as the best team that Liverpool have played this season?
Well, obviously, I don't watch Liverpool in every single game, but I must admit,
a lot of Liverpool.
I do watch a lot of Liverpool. I actually thought Ipswich opening game of the season played really well first half. Yeah. But the thing that I've said many a time with Slot, and I wanted to ask you about Slot and how good Slot actually is that, again, last night we saw it against Real Madrid. And I haven't watched every Liverpool game, but I have watched a few. And the amount of times they're a completely different side in the second half and a better side in the second half says to me that they're still a work in progress.
Well, I also think, do you know what's weird about it is there are so many different like misaligned timelines for Liverpool fans, because we felt we were halfway through a rebuild with Klopp, and then Klopp left. We felt that there was, something to come in the Klopp era, maybe one final title, one big push to a big finish line, and then he would sort of go, well, this was great, wave the cap around, and the next guy comes in and he's not quite as impressive. But actually, now that Slot has come in, suddenly the expectations have changed. You will remember pre-season, there wasn't anyone putting Liverpool forward for the title. Even Liverpool fans would have, as you say, like tempered their expectations for that. And that's what I find unusual now, is suddenly when people see some of the performances, and I put performances in inverted commas for a reason, everyone is going, oh, well, now they're title favourites. It's like, well, yeah, but we're really title favourites because City look extremely underwhelming. Arsenal have really flattered to deceive in a lot of their games. And I'll be honest, I think I'm really underwhelmed by United this season. Like, I actually thought, looking at some of the summer signings, that there would be a bit more confidence, a bit more like, right, the new age is coming. Even if we're not the best team, we're going to play up, and Rashford would be more dialed in and all these kind of things. And I thought I kind of Chelsea are where I thought they would be. So what I'm saying is, I think Liverpool haven't actually played an incredible team so far this season. And I think even if we do beat or get beaten or draw against City on Sunday, which we will talk about later, I still think we won't have played an incredible team. I think we'll have played a lot of sides who are still working themselves out. Slot is a great manager, and there is a boxing analogy here, whereas if I was going to box Anthony Joshua and we're similar weights, I would keep him just on the end of a jab for a little while and work out what that tactic
I'd pay to watch this, by the way. Yeah, I think Joshua, if he's got a bit of time, just keep Joshua on the end of a jab, and he'd be there backing off going, I don't fancy this Loz. He's got a bit of a range on me here.
You're not the only person to want to see me get in a ring with Anthony Joshua, put it that way. I think the main point I'd have there, though, is you keep me on the end of the jab, and you work out what it is that they're trying to time. You work out what it is that they're trying to do. And Slot uses this Liverpool team and just sort of says, try and see where the gaps are, like see what Modric is doing, see where Mbappe's at. Bradley, this is very likely, but if not, then we'll try and change this. Even in the second half, I was at Anfield last night. You see there's a substitution, or there was a moment where someone went down. He just beckons Luis Diaz over, and he has a little word in his ear. And it was when Cody Gakpo was coming on. So Gakpo was going on the left and Luis Diaz was going through the middle. And he just gives him a little note. And suddenly Diaz's position changes so radically from where it was before that's why that happens. And every Feyenoord fan told us this would happen. They go, the first half, you get accused of being boring almost.
It explains it really well, because obviously not being a Liverpool fan, but watching football a lot and loving football, it's remarkable the amount of times second half Liverpool are, as I said, that Ipswich game, Ipswich were brilliant first half, and then second half Liverpool could have won 5 or 6-0. Where do you look on the title? I put Arsenal out 3 weeks ago. I think they're out. I still think Man City are dangerous because they can win 10 or 12 games, or they've shown that in the past. But with an 8-point gap and Man City at home on Sunday, I think if Liverpool were to not win this title, that would be looked upon as pivotal. And I think a lot of people, we know what the press are like, they would say Liverpool bottled it. Even though I do take on board that it's still only the end of November and it's a new manager's first season, I think it's a remarkable set of circumstances to be 8 points clear with an opportunity to go 11 points clear of the only team that can stop you.
I think January is so critical for City in terms of who they sign, who it is that they kind of put a marker down in the sand as to this is the next generation. And I think Pep has begged or asked one or too many players to stay slightly too long. You know, I think Kyle Walker was asked in the summer by City to stick around. I think Edison has probably outstayed his welcome at this point. I just think there's a number of the old guard where I'm sort of like,
bringing Gundogan back.
Yeah, the sentiment, like everyone, if you're a City fan, even if you're not a City fan, the sentiment of bringing Gundogan back, you love. But the actual practicality of it, you're like, wait, you were going for Bellingham and Paquetá, and you're talking about getting Florian Wirtz, and your starting midfield. It's not that I don't think that Gundogan can't put in a good performance. It's that I think, can he do that week in, week out in the Premier League at this point? And the answer is no. And consistency is the key for City. So if you have players that are inconsistent, what do you expect?
I think they've missed Rodri massively as well. We'll talk about Man City Liverpool in a moment, but I did want to ask the question about Slot, because I was doing a watch along last night, and a lot of people in our community were asking the question of how much of this Liverpool success is because of Klopp and how much of it is because of Slot. Some would say that Klopp had done such an amazing amount, basically was building another team. I mean, that's the way I saw it, and then decided that the stress and pressure was, he needed a break. Having said that, I still don't think, even if Jurgen Klopp was in charge, he would be top of the Champions League group and 8 points clear at the top of the Prem. So for me, there is a balancing act here of what Slot's done. I also wanted to ask you, second part of that is, I think next season will be harder for Slot than this season, because I very much don't think Van Dijk, Trent and Salah will all be here. And then he will have to replace players.
So, that's kind of a two-parter, right? Is that I think Klopp, to an extent, didn't want to have to replace some of these guys and didn't want to have to go through that period of real difficult change. I'd imagine he seems like a very sentimental guy. I'd imagine that you don't want to have to be the guy that dethrones Van Dijk, moves Salah on, and essentially is. I think he maybe mapped it out and went, right, in 3 years, can I move Salah on, move Van Dijk on, watch Trent go to Madrid in a kind of Munich, Dortmund style, and have to bring in the next generation, only for the next manager to then come in and go, okay, well, this was great, but the rebuild isn't really what I want. And I think Slot took over knowing that was Klopp's idea. I'll be honest, I think, how can I put this? The way that we romanticize Fergie is similar to the way now that we romanticize Klopp as Liverpool fans. And not a bad word can be said about Fergie, but I think we both know, as people who lived through that era, there were some questionable decisions. Not that he wasn't successful or the greatest manager the Premier League's ever had, but he did you know, every manager's going to make some mistakes. I think
Jemba
Klopp,
Jemba.
right, Jemba, Bebe.
Well, there were bad years with Sir Alex. There were.
Yeah.
There were, especially sort of post, you know, when Mourinho came in, the Wenger invincible era. We were going through a few years of wilderness where some people felt that we might not come back from that as well. So, and also football's very different now. I think we're seeing with Pep Guardiola that, I mean, I did the video yesterday, and I'm sort of like, I think the press are great piling on to managers when there's no sort of comeback. But when a manager walks out with a scratched nose and scratched forehead, this is where I think this type of content's fantastic, because it's very much for the love of the game. And I said yesterday, that is either a dressing room brawl, which we've got no evidence of, or it genuinely is a manager who's clearly struggling if he's scratching his nose and forehead.
Oh, okay. All right. So my take on that was I felt like that was performative from Pep. And I felt that I'm not saying that I think he deliberately scratched his nose, but Pep Guardiola being Pep, there are a few managers that have just finished or are finishing their tenure in the Premier League who are cult managers. And I think when the cult leader cuts his nose and scratches his head and shows, I'm really going through it here, I think he's expecting a reaction. And I think I wouldn't put it past him. I'm not saying this happened, but that Pep turns to someone else and he goes, "Give me blade. I need a blade." He gets the medical scalpel and he goes, and then steps out. And just as he's going around the door, he goes, "Watch this." And as he's in there, he knows his nose is bleeding. Like, there's no way that you cut your nose and don't feel that. There's no way that you just don't have a knowledge of that. Maybe he's running on adrenaline, who knows? And then someone in the press conference goes, "Oh, you've cut your nose." And he goes, oh, did I? I guess I'll self-harm. And everyone's a bit like, hey, that's a weird thing to say, isn't it? That's very unusual.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big statement to say that, but I mean, look, at the end of the day,
it's not a bad thing, by the way, to do that. I think that's very brave.
It's
performative,
like you say. It could happen, but if it's not that, then it's incredible that, you know, that's. I mean, the only thing I can think of was David Beckham walking out with the butterfly stitches because the boot had hit him in the head from Sir Alex Ferguson, which was also
even that's performative,
massive.
though, isn't it? That was performative. Do you remember?
Well, it was from Beckham. I don't think Beckham needed that there.
No.
I think that was, but you know, the cut would have been noticed anyway. Like, it got noticed on Pep. But I think he is going through something though, and I've always said that I think Pep is I've never spoken to him, but I know people who've interviewed him stuff, and he's a very self-centered, egotistic person, which you would expect from a manager. But I always think the dry spit that he does all the time, it's there are certain things that he gives off that are just a little bit sort of obsessive, but they are struggling. They're a wounded animal, aren't they?
That's what worries me about coming to Anfield. The wounded animal is always dangerous because they have to do something very extreme to get the level playing field. And I've got to admit, there are a few. I think City is lovely. Obviously every football player is a decent guy. I'm sure none of them have ever done anything terrible. I don't like the idea of City coming to Anfield, maybe wanting to put one on a Liverpool player, or wanting to go through someone, or wanting to level the playing field somehow. I don't like the idea of. I don't think it will be Kyle Walker actually that probably plays right back, but I don't like the idea of someone worrying about Luis Diaz or thinking, well, if Salah's not in this team for Liverpool for a couple of weeks, what goes on then? That's that edge I think that City have does scare me a little bit. I think they are quite an edgy team.
I tell you what, you're sounding worried. You're sounding very worried. I'd never thought of it like that. I mean, I personally think that. I think Liverpool especially I think the Real Madrid result helps it, because it's just another vindication of how good Liverpool are at the moment. At Anfield, the atmosphere was good. Well, it seems to be good.
It built up. It built up last night. It was actually a pre-match. I was trying to work out whether it was one or two things. Liverpool saying, "Go on then." The fans going, "Go on then, impress us, like show us, blow them away," or them going, "Madrid always win. Let's not get too hyped up because I don't want to be disappointed." And I think it was a mixture of apprehension and anticipation. And as the game went on and we got better and better, and by the end it was Liverpool taking the piss, Liverpool taking the piss, and we were just making fun of them by then, because after the second goal went in, everyone just went, all right, mate, you're not scoring 2 here. You guys haven't looked like you're threatening us all night. And Mbappe maybe once or twice, but apart from that, nothing really. That's who I think it is.
I think Liverpool will win on Sunday. I think
Really?
well, I remember the game at Anfield last year, and in the second half, the petulance of Man City, which always comes to the fore when things aren't going their way. I think the brilliance of Man City has been the juggernaut where everything goes their way and they're so good. But actually, when you get under their skin, they don't deal with it very well. I mean, they kick out, they're petulant. And I just think the ingredients for Liverpool it's such a missed opportunity not to win the game. Even a draw leaves the door ajar.
I agree.
Whereas if you beat them, 11 points, that is yours, really. I mean, obviously, you've still got to put the work in, but there's a lot of slippage there. And I think Anfield, intimidation, Man City, publicly vulnerable. They've just let go of a 3-0 lead against Feyenoord as well. Pep's got his injuries. The players aren't as playing that well. They don't look to me like a team that can go anywhere and play 80% possession, chance after chance after chance. So I just think the ingredients are there for Liverpool, and it's really just about the fans and the players turning up and not, getting lost away in the fact that it's going to be a straightforward win, which I just don't think. I think they've got enough experience in that team to know that.
I've got a genuine question. I'm going to bring up the Premier League table because I don't quite know what the gap is between you guys. But I was looking at it yesterday on the train on the way up, packed train. There's only 7 points difference between you and City.
Man United.
Yeah. By the time that January ends, and this will be one of my hot takes, I think United will be closer to City than City are to Liverpool.
So it could be 11 points on Sunday. We beat Everton. That should take us to 4.
Well, I mean, we're assuming a lot here. We're assuming obviously that Liverpool get the win, but that would be one of my hot takes, as I call a half-baked. I think it's a half-baked take.
Yeah. Well, let us know in the comments for that one. Look, I think Man United have got a lot of work to do, and I'm very reluctant to start putting top 4 races or trophies against Amorim because, as we saw against Ipswich, I think we've got a good manager, but I think that the work is there to be done. Whereas I think with Man City, at some point, we all know they will go on a run. Like they've got too many good players that. But interesting one. I've got one. Which fits in with the start of the show. And we've got a bit of an external thing here because the Premier League have actually got, they've done, actually, I must applaud them this. I don't really shout out the mainstream for doing stuff that's informative and fun, but they basically got their panel to give best player of the season so far, signing of the season so far. So
any opinions in there that you really, any opinions there you thought, oh my God, I've got to hear what this person thinks of.
Well, I don't think I've got to hear what this person thinks fits in with the panel of Michael Owen, Leon Osman, Sean Wright-Phillips, Shay Given, Matt Holland, Tim Sherwood, Karen Carney, and Don Hutchinson. But it is a collection of ex-players who talk like they know what they're talking about. Having said that, I'm a little bit worried that my half-baked take, so it might not be right, but I sort of think it is, for signing of the season, could be Emil Smith-Rowe if I take my red-tinted glasses off. Because I personally think, as a Man United fan, I can't look anywhere other than Mazraoui, but I don't know how he's perceived by the external fan. That's very red-tinted. But as a general, that's football take, I think Smith-Rowe's quite good. Michael Owen and Leon Osman agree, Loz. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's a bad thing.
Well, Michael Owen, you and I, do you think of Michael Owen as, what player, when you see Michael Owen in your head, what kid do you see?
I actually see him in it. Like the Grand National jockey. I just think I see him as a horse owner. I don't even see him as a footballer.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, I don't see you in a football kit, Michael. I see you on a.
He's sort of burnt those bridges, hasn't he? I mean, what do you think of Michael Owen as a Liverpool fan? Because as a United fan, he scored a good goal against Man City, but there's no way any United fan looks at Michael Owen as an ex-Man United player.
I suppose it depends what era. Like, if you're young enough, you wouldn't know necessarily. You wouldn't know of Owen doing the things that we know Owen did. So when I think of Michael Owen, actually, what's weird is I think of him in an England shirt against Argentina, and that was for me, I mean, you know, I was having this discussion the other day in private, but I should have put it on a video. Michael Owen in the modern era. Does Michael Owen fit football now? He's got the pace. Maybe his touch isn't quite there. That's what we were saying.
I always thought he was look, he scored a lot of goals. He won a Ballon d'Or, but I always thought Michael Owen was a very awkward footballer. Like even the goal against Argentina, he never felt. I never felt like. Remember the goal he scored against Arsenal at the Millennium Stadium? I just never felt like he was an amazing finisher, but I never felt like it was smooth. Like Henry was va-va-boom smooth, wasn't he? Like, you know, he put it in the bottom corner because he wanted to. Whereas Owen, he just was like a bit unorthodox to me.
I totally agree.
Very, very, very good. Very, very good.
Yeah, I think with Owen, I always thought he looked like, I used to get to the park, I'd throw the ball out far in front of me and then just kick it and try and catch up to it. I always felt like that was kind of his style of football, was it was like just get the ball beyond the other person and just beat them for pure speed.
Yeah.
I never, you know, anyway, there's another conversation with Michael Owen. So they agree with you. I think so far this season, signing of the season, is it just the Prem?
Yeah. I mean, I can give some more names out if you want while you're thinking. Because Sean Wright.
No. I don't hate Matthijs de Ligt.
Mazraoui's been better for me as a United fan, but I think he's been steady, de Ligt. I do think he has been steady. I don't think he's been bad by any means, and I think it's a good take because he's probably not had the credit he deserves.
What about the end? Okay, then take what you think now. So take some of the names that you see on this incredible list that you found on the website. Who do you think will still be there at the end of the season when we're still talking about this? I think de Ligt will still be in that conversation. I think Ugarte will be higher up that list. I think Xerxes will probably actually have a bit more of a bearing on where you guys finish.
I think just
Marino.
Marino from Arsenal was the thing that prompted it the other night when somebody said it as an Arsenal fan. Some of the other names, Sean Wright Phillips, ex-Man City, said Savinho.
He's been good, but he's not blown me away. You know, there have been a few games where I've been like, yeah, that is good. But I think Sean Wright Phillips just watches and goes, if I say this, then people will think I'm a legend. It's like, all right then.
Well, I think by this time last year, Doku had a better start than him, because that was when Doku was like meant to be the best player in the world, wasn't he?
Hit the ground running, yeah.
Shay Given, Matty Holland, and Tim Sherwood all said Liam Delap. I think that's a little bit over the top as signing of the season. He's done well, but I think that's just a little bit like Ipswich. You know, he has done well, but I don't think I genuinely think I'm a bit disappointed that Michael Owens clocked onto it. Maybe he asked somebody who knew what they were on about. But I think Smith Rowe has done remarkably well at Fulham. Karen Carney went with Amari Hutchinson, which is again Ipswich. And Don Hutchinson went with Milenkovic, who is the centre-back at Forest, who actually have had quite a good season. But I feel Don Hutchinson sort of thought, how do I go really niche and not get criticised?
I mean, to be fair to them, I think probably when he made those predictions, Forest would have been third in the table, right? And then the weekend happened, and I think Forest went like, where are they now? Like 7th or 8th or something like that.
Yeah, it was done on the 19th, so 10 days ago.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So at that point, if you said, "Oh, what's going on?" you probably would have gone, "Oh, Forest look pretty good." Milenkovic's in terrible shape. I think Forest have really found their feet. I just think I'm also, I'll be honest, I'm not blown away by any of these signings. You could argue Milenkovic purely because of just the weighting of where the team are now. Maybe I'm not sure that I'd really go, wow, any of these people feel like, it's not like when Haaland hit the Premier League or when Nunes really ripped the league up, Mark. I think you're probably right or close to right with Emile Smith-Rowe. I mean, yeah. But Emile Smith.
Well, I want to say Mazraoui. I do want to say Mazraoui, but I just know
genuinely think he was the best. And I'm not putting you down here. You genuinely think the Mazraoui. I suppose maybe it shows how underwhelming the summer transfer window really was.
I think that there were some good signings in the summer. I mean, West Ham made a lot, didn't they? But I just think Mazraoui for 15 million has probably been United's best player with Onana. And he's ridiculously consistent, which is something we never see. So, but that's why I'm saying it's red tinted, because we don't see consistency at Man United. I'm sure other clubs do see that. So for me, it would be Smith Rowe or Mazraoui. But it's, as I say, it's a half-baked take, because somebody might be in the comments going, no, it's clearly not. It's clearly this, which, that's the whole point, isn't it? Best player so far, very quickly. They did that. I'd be loving your opinion on who you think's been the best player of the season so far. So
How
it
do you
doesn't have
judge?
to be a
How
new
do you
sign.
judge? Can I ask you, how do you judge best player? What's your,
I
what's your
don't.
criteria?
Yeah, because you could say who's the best player in the league, in which case it's a different conversation. So I do it based on form in the Premier League this season.
Okay.
I've changed mine. I think if you'd asked me a month ago, it would have been Cole Palmer.
Cole Palmer, yeah.
But where we are now, I would change it to Mo Salah.
So we agree.
This
is annoying. We agree. I get what you're saying. Could you make an argument for Haaland? Just even because he's performing, even though his team are not good right now?
I do. Look, a lot of people would not agree with that, but I like it because I'm very sympathetic of the graveyard shift that a Man United striker plays in, and I get very frustrated when people say Rasmus is crap. He gets no service. His goal conversion is really good. Yeah. Haaland is not crap. He's surviving on scraps again. So yeah. I think Haaland still is the leading goal scorer in the league, isn't he? Despite the fact that it feels like he's not scoring goals. So that just shows you how, for me,
that's kind of my point. And that's kind of my point there, is like, are we just overlooking how prolific he is as a striker? And then really, it's hard to think of anyone else outside of that. I mean, we've seen how important Odegaard is, but if you're doing it on form, it's, we can't do that. I think
not played enough, has he? He could still win Player of the Year because there's still a long time to go. But having said that, what you said about Haaland, for me, that's why Salah, because the numbers he puts in. I mean, there was a point in the Real Madrid game last night. It was nearly where Real Madrid scored the own goal at the start, and he gets the ball, Salah, from Nunez, I think, who continues the run, and it's a control, and then it's a weighted pass. And at United, so many times, if that's Rashford or Garnacho, I've got 10 yards of space in front of me. I am Garnacho, I am Rashford. I must run into that space and take the player on or get a shot. And I'm like, this is Mo Salah, the best player in the Premier League, who receives the ball. There's a Real Madrid player 10 meters in front of him. He can easily dribble with that, but he doesn't. He hits the weighted pass because that's the right pass to play for the team. And that's the difference between a Salah and a Saka for me, is that they are fantastic players who put in amazing numbers, but they thoroughly understand their role in the team and the benefit of playing the right pass at the right time. And instead of some players, I think, will go, well, I'm this player. I'm Kylian Mbappe. I must take 2 or 3 touches and take somebody on. Whereas, Salah doesn't do that. I think he's massively underrated. So, yeah. Do you want to know who you are?
He's changed his game. I think that's the key. Is like, I think showing his adaptability is a huge thing as a footballer. Like, like you said, like Mbappe, I'm sure Mbappe's got a lot in his locker. But last night, I remember thinking, go on then, mate, do something different. Like, you've worked out that this thing that you're doing isn't working. Do something else.
Yeah. Were you outraged by like Carragher? Were you outraged by Carragher? Were you outraged like Carragher was about Mo Salah coming out saying he's not had his contract offer, and
no,
Carragher was very much, that might destabilize the ship. I didn't really think that myself, but as a Liverpool fan,
I was really surprised that he said that, because I think, I mean, obviously he was never really, that's what's weird. He was in the dressing room when Steven Gerrard wanted to leave. He was in the dressing room. And I think Carragher sometimes skews some of his takes because of his own experiences in his career. And I think he remembers people wanting to leave Liverpool and agitating, or sort of it being a bit more tense behind the scenes. That was different owners. It was a different era. It was a different manager. There were so many different things. I think Salah will have said that. And you could see have you seen the video online of Virgil van Dijk coming up alongside Salah as he's giving those quotes? And it's almost as if Virgil knows what Salah's saying. And he's like, he's doing the thing that we all said he'd do in the dressing room. And he turns up, and Virgil, he's obviously a very calculated guy. He's very smart. He's got like a real smirk on his face. And you can see, and Salah turns around and sort of goes, and, obviously I want to see this guy stay as well. And Virgil's like, yeah, I want to, yeah. And what's interesting about that is that, for me, I think, well, you know what you're doing there. And I think the rest of the dressing room look at that and go, good for you, mate. Good for you. You get yours. I don't think they look and go, no way, Salah's leaving. What? Like, that's not the way it works.
I think it's weird as a United fan to look at a Liverpool player and say he's underrated and doesn't get the credit he deserves. And obviously, I would love him to leave Liverpool because they'll be worse without him. You can't replace those sort of numbers that quickly. Although you'd replace the Klopp quite quickly, to be fair. So who knows? You'll probably pull something out of the rabbit's hat, but the rabbit out of the hat. But I think that I had no problem with it because I just thought, well, this is a player that is probably thinking about staying at Liverpool, who hasn't had an offer on the table yet. That's nothing to do with disrespecting Liverpool. That's to do with the CEO and their game they're playing. And maybe it's a game from Salah to say, look, if Real Madrid come in and offer me 300 grand a week, then that's Liverpool's fault if they don't. So I just think it's looking after your own interests. And I think you get to a point in your career. The interesting thing about Salah is he's not at the end of his career where next season he won't be any good. Like he's still, the Qatari stories sort of always damage a player in the sense that, oh, they're off to retire. I don't think Salah needs to be having that conversation unless he wants to. I think he's capable of giving 2. And like you say, the way he's changed his game technically, look at Bernardo Silva's got no pace, but you know, I could see Salah doing a Bernardo Silva role. So he could have 2-3 years left at the top if he wants it.
He's also not as blistering as he used to be. You know, you remember the period where, weirdly, Daniel James was like the fastest player in the Manchester United team. And there was that sprint race between the two of them and Salah just sort of held him off and then scores the goal down at the, I think that was at the Cop. And I remember thinking, wow, you are lightning. He used to just cover such speed. Last night, he was good. Obviously, he backed off Mendy for the penalty, but he wasn't nearly as quick as I remember Salah. So when the player loses that pace, I think a lot of wingers drop off because the pace goes down. I just think Liverpool and Salah slightly have a difference in where they value the player. And I think that's where the negotiations go. It's also slightly mixed messaging because one week he goes, I think this is my final year at Liverpool, at which point you go, okay, well, you think it's the final year. There's no need to do contract negotiations then because you're leaving. And then the next week he goes, well, no one's offered me a contract. I'd have turned around and gone, last week you said you were leaving, mate. Are you sorry? Have you got a foot out the door, or are you sticking around? Like, which one is it? And that's very. It makes me think. Right, okay. Instead of it just being like a let's take this at face value, it's much more like let's do this as a Cold War kind of thing. And that's where when Carragher kind of went, well, you can't be doing that. They're like, I was like, oh mate, just
Carragher.
Thank you.
We should do it. We should do a piss take overlap. You could be Carragher. I'll be Neville. I'll just go, we're Manchester United. Manchester United.
Mark, genuinely, okay. If we're gonna do this, do you ever watch the overlap?
No.
Do you genuinely not watch? You don't even if you see.
I can't bring myself to watch it. You know what I'm. Right. You know what I'm like. Do you think I sit and watch the overlap with a big smile on my face, going, you know what? It's great content. I'd like to watch it. It's right up my. I mean, they've got Ricky Gervais on this week. I would love to watch it. I watched you and Brian with Ricky Gervais.
Good moments.
Yeah, but I liked you and Brian and what you did, and you were respectful, even though we were competing with each other. I know that guy can't stand me, and I just therefore I'm
what have you ever done to Ricky Gervais?
Yeah, what have I ever done to Ricky Gervais?
So I think you on the back of that, Mark, genuinely, because you know that. I mean, there are things that we obviously can't talk about on camera here, but I think some people have been very snide, I'm going to say, about you off camera. And I think they've operated in quite a sort of a way that I wouldn't have expected of an ex-player who I thought was better than that. I'll put it that way, right? I think that's weird, but I also think it shows that maybe you threaten some of these people a little bit, and that I find unusual. Because why would you ever be
really weird? It's really weird. The only thing I can think of is that he must not be as happy as he makes out on camera, because to be driven by the things that I've come face to face with over the last couple of years, it's just weird behavior.
But can I just say also, though, I also think you'd be great on the overlap. Like, if you were on it, you would be because Roy Keane would bloody love it. He'd always be going, this guy's and Neville would be down the other end with his croissants and his Huel, which he just keeps backing all the time.
They're not. Do you know what though? My interpretation is, and there's no point in me not saying it because it's not like it's going to get any better than the situation it is.
Yeah, not doing.
And that's my opinion on everything. I'll say anything about anybody because it's not disrespectful. It's just the reality. I don't think they want that. I mean, I don't think they genuinely want the Bryans or you or me. I'm trying to think of anybody else who actually has a personality and
Rory
does.
Jennings. No, they have Rory Jennings. Okay.
Yeah, but I purposely left him out because
Okay, because
he's real. He's fell off the last 6 months because he thinks he's back on EastEnders again. Everything's a done. Every time he drops a point, I love Rory, but every time he drops an opinion at the moment, like Brighton or what's wrong with football, I just hear dun dun dun
yeah.
dun dun dun.
No, I get that.
And it feels like he's gone that way. But
wow, yeah,
I don't think I'd sit on an overlap panel. I wouldn't be intimidated, even though that they're all there. I completely agree with the comments going, you shouldn't be on there. They've won trophies and this, that, and the other. But I still think I'd be able to sit there and have a conversation with them and not be concerned. And I think that concerns them more than it concerns me. I'm not saying they're scared. I just think that they don't want that. They want the world of, mate, look, I've said it for years. It's an exclusive club that's almost mythical in the sense that you need to be an ex-player to talk about football. You don't.
Sure.
You don't. You absolutely don't. Some of them are very, very good. Some of them are dreadful. I mean, look, best player so far, Leon Osman, Chris Wood. I mean, come on. He's not been the best player in the Premier League so far. He scored a few goals. He's not been that. To be fair, I don't know what Michael Owen's drinking. He said Ryan Gravenberch, which I think, again, is a good shout. I wouldn't put him ahead of Salah, but it's a good shout.
Become a good pundit.
I think he's got a new, admin on social who he just messages and goes, "Get me this answer."
Yeah, quick.
ChatGPT. James Alcott's there. He's mates with James Alcott. Best player so far. I've just shot a video on it, actually, Michael. Go with Gravenberch.
And away it goes. I think Michael Owen is one of the early football adopters of AI, and he just puts in, I need 3 of the best players this season, and it goes, don't worry, Michael, I'll sort that out right now. And then he goes, oh, well, I was thinking maybe it would be Ryan Gravenberch. Does anyone else watch Gravenberch? Or maybe that Mo Salah guy. How about him, huh? And everyone goes, Michael, this is very unusual. You're coming up with some good takes. You should do this in real life.
I've got to respect Michael Owen because he always comes across to me as a guy that hasn't got that much interest in football, but still makes a lot of money out of it, and he's actually laughing at everybody else. Which, 100%. As somebody who sort of has done the same for the last 10 years, I'm sort of like, well done.
No, I get it. And I sat behind Michael Owen on a plane once. Someone else paid for it, and I remember watching him. As a kid, I was obsessed with Michael Owen. I thought it was amazing. And I remember watching him, and I could just see little bits on his phone every now and again. He was always looking at property or horses.
Yeah,
it was literally, he was treating Zoopla
or porn
like it was Tinder. I didn't see the. I hope that neither of those were the subjects of the pornography. Houses or horses. But I just remember thinking, wow, this guy is just living another level of life where he can just go, I'll look at some horses on my phone now for a while. You've got to have real money to just want to look at horses. Do you know what I mean?
I think, well look, the chat will decide and the views will decide if you want us to do it again, because we had a few more topics we wanted to talk about, like you wanted to talk about transfers. But one thing that I wouldn't mind revisiting as well, if we do it again, and it sort of feeds into Michael Owen, is the way gambling in football is sort of brushed over a little bit, because so many of those players, I've spoken to some of them, like Incy and people like that, and that was a massive part of filling the boredom, whether it's on a plane or an international break, and big gambling. I don't know whether it's so prevalent in football now, but obviously we've seen it with Tonali and that lot. But then also,
I think it is.
I don't know whether you're on Twitter anymore. Like I got approached the other week to do an article on it, and I just didn't have time. It was about, these like images or videos where people put steak on it.
Yeah.
I think it's disgusting, absolutely disgusting. And it's like,
it is weird.
The Wild West of social media it's a strange thing, because most people do adhere to, even YouTube channels will adhere to advertising guidelines. And then in the last few months, I just see a gambling company being put onto images they don't control by underage Twitter accounts who are earning from it, and nobody's doing anything about it. And it's like, but then you see the flip side of, a Paddy Power or someone like that, they won't work with somebody who's under 25, who's got a big following on TikTok because it's got a certain demographic. And then you've got that going on as well. And it's like, who's actually doing something about this? Because football and gambling don't have a great history, and it goes right to the top of it. I mean, I used to like a bet on the football. I think there's some fun to have, but
I'm more of a long shot kind of guy, mainly because, and I'll be honest, I'll never think, oh, I can, if I lose, I'll go, oh, I lost. But I know a few people who cannot resist the chase of getting the money back that they put in. Yeah. And that always makes me feel I feel a bit sick when I think of that.
Well, I always respect the people who go, oh, I'll have Liverpool to win the league at 4-1. And they put the bet on in July, and they won't get the answer until the end of May next year.
Right.
And it's
do you have a rush the whole time? Do you think they just go back to the Premier League table and go, oh, 40 quid could be mine? It's like,
but literally you could in one game do multiple 4-1 bets.
Yeah.
And on that tenor, and that's what I mean. It's that some people are very excessive, and some people are just like, "Oh, I'll just drop that on,"
Well, it's like last night when we were in the stadium. We were in a group of people, and a couple of other people had a bet, but there was one person who would put like a tenner on 4 different very long odds. So, like Curtis Jones to score, McAllister to score, Mbappe to score any time in the first half, all these kind of things. And it was like they'd win $4,500 or something, and to an extent, it made it slightly more interesting for them. But I thought, was it the money, or was I more entertained by the like, oh, look what you think is going to happen in the game than the tenner? Do you know what I mean? That was what I was more entertained by. I almost think we should do a gambling app where you win or lose nothing, but what you have to do is just lock in exactly what you think is going to happen in the game beforehand, and you just win like social kudos. Like, everyone just goes, well done you called the 2 missed penalties. Because
fantasy Premier League's a bit like that, isn't it? But
a little bit, but that's too niche for me. Like, I feel like someone needs to put their balls on the line and be like, like last night after Keller has saved a penalty and Salah missed one, I turned to Stephen, who I was with, and went, yeah, of course. Oh, right, that makes perfect sense. Like, why didn't I think of that?
Bartlett or Gerrard?
Gerrard.
That reminds me of a brilliant I always used to have brilliant ideas before I started doing this, sort of like creatives. And I had a brilliant idea for an app, head-to-head sort of thing, that I had no idea how to build it, but I know it would be absolutely, it doesn't involve money either. Could involve money, but it would be just brilliant from a football fan perspective.
Well, then this is the next stage of Goldbridge, is app development, and you need to start wearing turtlenecks and sort of giving speeches at conferences and sort of, when we say Bitcoin, what do we mean?
Yeah. We'll leave it there, Loz. I'll tell you what, though, I think there's a lot of good, probably the last 10 minutes is the best 10 minutes of that whole thing. And we know from YouTube being in it for years that there probably is a small percentage of people who saw the last 10 minutes, which is where it goes. But let us know in the comments if you want us to do it again, and also let us know what sort of topics you'd like us to discuss, because I enjoyed all of it, but especially the riffing at the end.
Yeah, I enjoy spending time with you. So if I can, if we can just spend a little more time together, that's all I want, Mark.
Lovely stuff. Thanks very much for coming on, Loz. Got anything else planned? More of these?
Yeah, I'd love to do more. I think you and I should just Skype more. Is Skype still an app? I don't know. We should FaceTime. How do you call your friends? I don't know. I don't really do that. We should just talk more.
I just sort of do a tick.
The thing about you that I find hard is I text a lot of my friends during the game, and I can't text you during the game because I feel like what you should have is a screen that shows some of the text messages from your friends during the game. So say, mid-game, Chris MD messages you, or Chunks or someone, and they go, oh, Arsenal are terrible. You can go, oh, Chunks thinks Arsenal are terrible. Do you know what I mean? Not that he'd say that.
I'll tell you what, I'd get a lot more of them messaging me if I did that.
No, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love that for the social. You'd find out who your real friends are. And he's doing it for the views.
Yeah, I don't think you'd ever end up putting my texts up, because you just have so many texts from other people who are actually 10 times more significant on YouTube. It would just be like, oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah. I'd still have to wait.
I don't know about Anyway, absolute pleasure to have you on. Hopefully we will
You.
do it again. We'll be driven by the community, which is what the way it should be. But I'd like to say good luck at the weekend, but that would be bollocks. I'd probably prefer a draw, to be fair.
Good luck against Everton, I want to say.
Yeah, you do. You don't want. You don't like Everton.
Who do I dislike more is the question.
Yeah.
And now Amarim's made you good again, or he is about to make you good. I want your suffering maybe to last just like 2 weeks longer.
That is a funny thing about Amarim. I think a lot of rival fans are really interested, which I think is always a good sign. But then again, he hasn't actually done anything yet. So I'm sort of like getting a lot of praise for Amarim, but I'm almost like, yeah, the problems are deep. It's not just, I don't think a Jurgen Klopp or a prime Pep would necessarily succeed at United, because the problems I've always said go beyond the manager, but we'll see. We can talk about that in the future.
I hope so.
Thanks, Lars.
Much love.
Thanks, everyone. Make sure you smash a like, get your comments in below. We'll speak to you on the next one.
And away